I used to believe loneliness was loud. I thought it announced itself with empty rooms and unanswered messages. But I learned, slowly, that loneliness can be quiet, especially when you are surrounded by people who feel close but never quite choose you. My name is Ethan Walker, and for most of my adult life, I learned how to live comfortably inside that quiet that I was open about who I was. I never hid my sexuality, never pretended to be anything else. Yet openness did not guarantee connection. It only meant I was honest with myself, even when others were not. I filled my days with work, routine, and friendships that felt steady but carefully limited. Among those friendships, none felt safer, or more complicated, than my bond with Lucas Reed. Lucas had been in my life for nearly 4 years. We met through mutual friends, the kind of accidental meeting that doesn't announce its importance at first. He was easy to be around. Confident without being loud, attentive without prying. He was also, very clearly, straight. He talked about women casually, the way someone does when attraction is natural and unexamined. From the beginning, I placed him firmly in the category of men I would never want, because wanting him would only end in disappointment. That boundary made our friendship possible, that we shared late dinners, long drives, and conversations that drifted between jokes and quiet confessions. Lucas knew about my past relationships, the ones that failed softly, without drama. I knew about his job frustrations, his strained relationship with his father, and his girlfriend, Megan Collins. Megan existed in our conversations like a steady background noise. She was never fully present, but always there. Her name came up in passing, in texts he answered quickly, in plans he adjusted without explanation. That I respected her place in his life, even though I had never met her. That respect was part of my survival. I had learned early that crossing lines, even emotional ones, left damage that rarely healed cleanly. So when Lucas leaned on me, I stayed balanced. When he laughed, I laughed with him, never at him. When he was quiet, I didn't push. I told myself that this was what healthy friendship looked like, especially between a gay man and a straight one. That the night everything shifted began without any warning. No dramatic setup, no sense of destiny. Just exhaustion and inconvenience. Lucas had come over late, frustrated after an argument with Megan that he refused to explain. The weather had turned unexpectedly harsh, rain pounding the city into stillness. He planned to leave after an hour, but the roads flooded faster than either of us anticipated. You can crash here, I said, without hesitation. That it felt harmless. Logical. I lived alone, but my apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 1 bed. I offered the couch, but Lucas shook his head. Don't be stupid, he said with a tired smile. We're adults. I agreed, because arguing would have meant acknowledging something I didn't want to examine. We changed into sleepwear like roommates, not like men who might one day regret this choice. We lay on opposite sides of the bed, a careful distance between us. I stared at the ceiling, counting breaths, reminding myself that proximity did not equal intimacy. At first, everything was quiet. The rain softened into a distant rhythm. Lucas shifted occasionally, restless but silent. I focused on my breathing, on the familiar comfort of another presence without expectation. This was fine, I told myself. This meant nothing. Then I noticed how tense he was. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched near his chest. He exhaled sharply, as if holding something in. I didn't turn toward him, but awareness settled heavily between us. After a long moment, he spoke my name, barely above a whisper. Ethan, he said, then stopped. That I waited. Silence stretched, fragile and loaded. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, he asked finally, and still ending up wrong? The question wasn't rhetorical. It carried weight, the kind that asks to be held. I answered carefully, choosing honesty without intrusion. Yes, I said. More often than I'd like. He nodded, though I wasn't sure he realized it. His breathing slowed, but the tension didn't leave. Minutes passed. Then hours, it seemed. Sleep came and went in fragments. Sometime in the early morning, I turned slightly, just enough to see his face in the dim light. That was when I saw the tears. Lucas wasn't sobbing. He wasn't making noise. His eyes were open, staring at nothing, a single tear slipping quietly into his hairline. One hand gripped his phone, the screen dark, as if he'd already read something he couldn't unread. His lips moved, and though I couldn't hear the words clearly, I recognized the shape of a name, Megan. Something inside me tightened, not with jealousy, but with understanding. This wasn't a man secure in his life. This wasn't a man resting beside a friend without consequence. This was someone unraveling in silence, caught between obligation and truth, leaning into a space that was never meant to hold him. That I turned away before he could notice me watching. My chest felt heavy, not with desire, but with clarity. I realized that the danger of that night wasn't physical closeness. It was emotional exposure. Seeing someone stripped of their defenses changes the way you see them forever. By morning, nothing had technically happened. No lines were crossed that could be easily named. Yet I knew, with unsettling certainty, that something had shifted. The safety I once felt had cracked, and through that fracture, something irreversible had begun to surface. As daylight crept into the room, I understood one thing clearly: sleeping in the same bed hadn't changed everything. Seeing the truth had. Morning arrived without ceremony. Pale light filtered through the blinds, settling across the room like a quiet witness. Ethan Walker woke first, not because he was rested, but because his thoughts refused to loosen their grip. For a moment, he lay still, listening to the steady rhythm of breathing beside him, and tried to convince himself that the night had passed without consequence. When Lucas Reed stirred, he did so carefully, as if aware of the fragile space between them. He sat up, rubbing his face, avoiding Ethan's eyes. The distance he created was subtle but deliberate. It was the kind of distance built by someone who knew something had changed but did not yet know how to name it. "Morning," Lucas said, his voice rough. "Morning," Ethan replied, matching the tone, offering normalcy like a truce. They moved around the apartment with practiced politeness. Coffee brewed. Mugs clinked softly against the counter. Lucas checked his phone more than once, his jaw tightening each time the screen lit up. Ethan noticed everything and said nothing. Silence had become a language they both understood too well. Finally, Lucas leaned against the counter, staring into his cup as if answers might surface there. "About last night," he began, then stopped. He exhaled slowly. "I didn't mean to put anything on you." Ethan met his gaze then, steady and calm. "You didn't," he said, though part of him questioned the truth of it. Lucas nodded, relieved but unconvinced. He paused again, struggling. "Being here feels easy. With you. And that scares me." The admission landed heavily. Ethan felt it settle in his chest, not as hope, but as responsibility. "Easy doesn't always mean right," he said carefully. "Sometimes it just means familiar." Lucas ran a hand through his hair, frustration flashing across his face. "I know. That's what makes it worse." He looked away, his voice dropping. "With Megan, everything feels expected. Planned. I don't know when it started feeling like a role instead of a relationship." Ethan listened, resisting the instinct to comfort. He had learned the danger of becoming the place someone ran to instead of the person they chose. "Then that's something you need to face," he said. "Not escape from." Lucas flinched, as if the word struck closer than intended. "You think I'm escaping?" "I think," Ethan replied evenly, "that being here last night wasn't an accident." The room fell quiet again. Rainwater dripped steadily from the window ledge outside, the sound grounding, relentless. Lucas straightened, as if bracing himself. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he said. "Especially you." Ethan felt a tight smile form. Intentions don't always stop damage. As if summoned by the tension, Lucas's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Ethan recognized the name on the screen before Lucas turned it face down. The guilt was unmistakable, etched into every movement. "She's asking where I stayed," Lucas said quietly. "And what will you tell her?" Ethan asked. Lucas hesitated. That pause said more than any answer could. Ethan felt the weight of that hesitation settle between them, solidifying into something neither could ignore. This was the moment where honesty demanded action, not explanation. "I should go," Lucas said at last. Ethan nodded. "Yes." They stood by the door, neither quite ready to leave the space they had crossed into together. Lucas reached for the handle, then stopped. "For what it's worth," he said, "last night made me realize how much I've been lying. Not to you. To myself." Ethan absorbed the words without letting them take root. "Realizations matter," he said. "What you do with them matters more." Lucas searched his face, as if hoping to find permission there. When he didn't, something like respect flickered in his eyes. He nodded once and left. The door closed softly behind him, but the silence it left was deafening. Ethan leaned against the wall, steadying himself. He knew this was how emotional betrayals began, not with grand gestures, but with comfort offered at the wrong time to the wrong person. Later that day, Ethan met Noah Bennett for lunch. Noah had a way of listening without trying to fix things, which made him invaluable. Ethan didn't share details, only the shape of the unease that lingered. "You did the right thing," Noah said simply. "Walking away before it becomes something you can't undo." Ethan nodded, though certainty still eluded him. Doing the right thing rarely felt clean in the moment. That evening, his phone lit up with a message from Lucas. Just a few words. "I'm trying to be honest. I don't know how yet." Ethan stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Figure it out without dragging me into the middle." He set the phone down and looked around his apartment. Everything was exactly where it had been before, yet nothing felt the same. The night had revealed truths that could not be unseen, and the morning had forced choices neither of them had wanted to make. As darkness settled outside, Ethan understood that whatever came next would test more than their friendship. It would test integrity, restraint, and the cost of choosing clarity over comfort. And this time, there would be no neutral ground to retreat to.